Thunderbolts on par with expectations. Sinners returns to IMAX theaters. More politics and brand new faces on this episode of Beyond the Screen. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Beyond the Screen. As always, I'm your host. My name is Ryan Gum. But who is this sitting across from me today? What a new face. This is Matthew Lemons, a fellow student from broadcasting. We went to school together, graduated a little bit before I did. Another multimedia professional, a man, the myth, the legend. Matt, introduce yourself.
Hello, Matthew Lemons here, and just here to talk about movies.
Hey, I guess that's as good of an introduction as any. So for those of you who might be wondering, who sit at home and you're like, wait, where's Jake? Don't worry. He's not dead. He's around. He's indisposed this evening. He had some issues with his vehicle. Life gets in the way. You guys know, you heard me complain about it for multiple weeks. I probably adding to an annoyance of me complaining about my car problems. What was that, like a month and a half ago now? So I have a lot of sympathy for Jake in this moment. But anyway, it's just kind of last minute, so I had to make an emergency call. And I was like, please, somebody, anybody, be on the pod. And Matt was like, I'll do it. I'll take one for the team. I'll sit across from you.
Exactly. Hey, anytime I get a chance to talk about Sinners and Marvel, I'm all for it.
And there you go. You are our first pro Marvel guest. Me and Jake, we make fun of Marvel all the time, and you're our first true just Marvel head to enter the arena and discuss film with us. But on that note, we always start the episode with one question: how are you doing? What you been up to?
I'm doing well. I am just enjoying another Monday. Been building some Legos today and picking up kids and doing all the things.
Oh, that's another thing to note. Not only does this man love Legos, he's old and he's a dad. So that's something else to make note, is that he's a kid at heart, but with responsibility.
Unfortunately.
On that note, as always, my day was great. Thank you for asking. It was I think another Monday is a great way to put it. It's just, I work in higher ed. We've talked about this on the pod before. It's just, we're late in the semester, final grind, trying to get ready for the summer, which will be an absolutely fantastic slate of months for me and my mental health as we prep for the fall. So I'm not a professor. I want to make that clear. I feel like I've had a few people ask me, few viewers be like, "Oh, what do you teach?" I don't. I am like marketing and promotions for creative arts. So
not one yet.
Not one yet. That's a TBD on that, because we never know. But with that out of the way, we're going to go ahead and move into our first segment, which is always box office news. Unlike last week, we're going to have our usual slate of 3 segments. We usually go box office, for those who are new, box office news, main news topics, and then what we call our quick-ish hits. And that's usually 4 to 6 headlines that weren't big enough to be the main news, but we go through them in a little bit quicker time than the main headline. So with that out of the way, we'll go ahead and hop in. Thunderbolts finishes first in this weekend's box office numbers, earning 76.1 domestically, 86.1 internationally, with a grand total of 162 million worldwide. With both numbers, all these numbers, that's just their projections. That is still a great opening. The thing is, while their numbers aren't necessarily like what you would imagine a Marvel movie, you usually expect them to beat expectations. People are loving this film. Disney's hoping for a Mufasa type of run in the box office where it just sticks in theaters for forever and it earns $1 billion, not because it had one significant weekend. In fact, if you remember, Mufasa was in a terrible state after 2 weeks, but because it stuck around for so long, it still earned $1 billion. So they're hoping for something similar. Obviously, Thunderbolts, which is now being dubbed the New Avengers, which we'll get to in a minute, had a great opening weekend. But going back to its rating, Thunderbolts is tied for the 3rd highest rated film from Rotten Tomatoes in the MCU. It is right now at a 95% from critics, which is insane. That is tied with Spider-Man Far From Home and is only behind the 97% from No Way Home and the 98% from Shang-Chi. What? I did not know that The Legend of the Ten Rings was that highly rated, which seems kind of crazy because like I remember watching that and being like, this is a good movie, but it's not the best Marvel film. So anyway, the highest rated film in the MCU is Shang-Chi, The Legend of the Ten Rings, and that is one of the two films that can genuinely say they beat the rating of Thunderbolts. Fans are also loving this film, with audiences giving the film a A- on CinemaScore, which is, again, an unreal, like, it just the fact that that many people in our day and age where people just want to be different just to be different, the fact that it's still getting a 95% from critics and an A- from just general audiences, big deal. Again, the official title is now The New Avengers. For those who don't know, the film stars Florence Pugh, Sebastian Stan, Wyatt Russell, David Arbor, and more, with an IMDb synopsis of, quote, after finding themselves ensnared in a death trap, an unconventional team of anti-heroes must embark on a dangerous mission that will force them to confront the darkest corners of their past. As of right now, again, the film has made over $160 million in one weekend. Just to produce the film, it cost $180 million. That's without marketing, so it'll probably be over 300. But it's almost at half or over half, at least, of what it has to make in one weekend with the Disney and MCU name on it. So it's probably going to jump to around 500 million or more. Of the two of us in this call, Matt, you're the only one to have seen it. So I have to know your thoughts, and I have to know if Marvel are they finally rebounding?
I think they are definitely starting to rebound. I also saw the last film they had, which was Captain America, which, you know, as a Marvel fan, I can be unbiased about it and say that that movie did not it's nowhere near as good as Thunderbolts, you know, just from the way it was shot, just, you know, it doesn't have the green screen feel to it like that movie did. It just feel like all the stunts, the opening sequence is Florence Pugh falling off a building that's like, I think they said is the second tallest building in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, and I'm not surprised that it's doing as well as it is because the some of the aspects that it focuses on, which is mental health, and you know, for the younger generation, mental health is a very important part of everybody's life, and I think it's a really cool idea that they've focused the movie about that itself. And I don't, I could see the movie making easily 6 to 800 million, maybe, and definitely has a chance for 1 billion, I think.
Yeah. And the thing is I've read a lot about this film coming into this week, and the thing is that there were a couple of critiques. Mainly is that they took too long. A lot of these characters were introduced and their stories were developed or at least laid out 3 years ago.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
that was kind of my critique as well. Like once I read that, I was like, you know, that's a really good point. But also on top of the marketing, this just felt different, right? Like the last time we saw
Hmm.
Bucky, he was kind of dealing with the fact that like, can he step into that leadership role?
Hmm.
The last time we saw a bunch of these characters, it was the idea of like, can they be a family? Can they be a group? And this answers a lot of that. And I love the idea, the fractured MCU, not in terms of timelines, but in terms of there's all these different groups, because that's how the comic books are laid out. So I love the idea
Hmm.
that Spider-Man's going street level. I love the idea that you have the New Avengers, which is this unconventional anti-hero group, and then you have
Hmm.
whatever Sam Wilson's putting together. Um,
Hmm.
and this is something we talked about off pod too, is what's interesting about all these different groups, specifically the Avenger level groups. They're made up of a lot of like Captain America ripoffs, really. I mean, like
Hmm.
not to call Sam Wilson a ripoff, because I love his character because he's still himself, right? Like he's still Falcon,
Hmm.
but he's just with the red, white, and blue instead of just
Hmm.
burgundy and silver. Um, but they're all Steve Rogers wannabes to some extent,
Hmm.
which is an interesting concept.
It is. You know, Bucky, I always thought he should have been the next Cap. I personally liked his story arc better than Sam's, but I have enjoyed seeing where they're gonna go with Sam. Have him, he does have much more of a leadership character about him. But yeah, they all kind of have that. That I think one of the biggest critiques about this movie, and I remember a time when people were like, "Oh, this is who's going to be in the movie. Who's going to do anything? There's nobody who has any real superpowers or anything like that." Because I mean, that movie was when they announced the characters, it was ripped apart from beginning, and it's just to see everybody do a complete 360 overnight is just it's just kind of crazy.
Yeah. So again, Thunderbolts wins the box office, earning a global total of 162 million, just over 162 million. So a successful first outing for the Marvel film. But again, as Disney likes to have instilled in their films, is longevity. So I'm interested to see your prediction of 600 to 800 million. That's a hefty feat, but the fact of the matter is they made almost 200 in their first weekend. How long and how over the course of time, how much will their ticket sales drop? Speaking of ticket sales drop, those that are not dropping is our second place film. Ryan Coogler's vampire epic Sinners continues an insanely hot stretch at the box office in its third week in theaters. Again, coming in second, the film earned another 33 million domestically. That brings its domestic total up to 179.7 million and its global tally to 236.7 million, which is for an original flick, for an original pick, no baseline IP, something that's super just off the cuff. Ryan Coogler made this happen. What a run. And the thing is, too, it's not just, hey, people are going out to see it. They're demanding that this stays in theaters. Before we move on to that point, from week 1 to now, we have less than a 28% drop in ticket sales.
That's insane.
Oh my goodness. The first week in domestic theaters, 48 million. We're at 33, and we're 3 weeks in. Unheard of. So anyway, going back to our point about audiences, they're not only wanting to go see Sinners, they're demanding that it stays in theaters, but not just in theaters, on the biggest screen as possible. So heading into this week, if you were here last week, you'll know what I'm going to refer to. Thunderbolts replaced Sinners worldwide, or at least nationwide, in most IMAX theaters. However, due to the high demand and just the absolute push from audiences, Warner Brothers agreed from May 15th to May 21st to re-release Sinners back into IMAX theaters on big screens for that week. And when they announced that, not only did they sell out, but they crashed AMC's website within hours. This is next week. We're not even to that yet. We have a week in between. So by the time we get to week 5, when this is going to hit the box office, they're going to, oh my gosh, they're going to make 500 million off this.
Sinners, that like I told you off camera, the Sinners was probably the best movie I've seen in a very long time. Just everything, the story, the music, the way it was shot, everything is beautiful about it, and you can tell how much attention to detail that Ryan Coogler puts into his films.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he is just on a roll of movies that just, I mean, he doesn't have one bad one yet.
Nope.
You know,
the one that you can attribute to his worst is the sequel to Black Panther.
And honestly, I attribute that to more about it not having Chadwick Boseman than anything else, because that's just a hard pill to swallow. That's a hard way to go about making a movie.
Mm-hmm. And what are you going to do? And the thing is, no one says that film's bad. They just are all like, yeah, that one's probably his worst. But what are you going to do? Exactly. And from Creed to Black Panther to now
all
Sinners,
the Creeds are great.
The man has a straight connection to Chris Nolan. That's a guy he calls apparently before every film, not even to talk about film, but just to call. And if that's a guy that's just on your quick, like your hotline. So I'm excited.
What a number.
I'm excited to continue following Ryan Coogler. But going back to Warner Brothers allowing this film to stick around in IMAX theaters for that week, they released a statement saying audience have spoken and we listened, which is for a company absolutely struggling in almost every regard. Good job. You did the easiest thing you could do. This is the first time we've seen them actually be like, oh, it's a good idea. And they did this twice this weekend. This isn't the first time, this last week anyway. This isn't the first time. We'll see that here in just a moment. But I always like to think, and I kind of know the answer to this, but I'm curious your perspective. Why such a limited run? Because the thing is that, like, I get, like, they got to move on. Like, obviously, Thunderbolts brought in almost as much as it did in 1 week, and they're in 3 weeks, right? Like, that's just going to happen when you have the kids-oriented MCU with the Disney tag. But I just feel like this film is continuously making money. We're not even to week 5 yet. Week 5 is going to be when we see exactly what we just talked about. So it's going to probably stay about the same next week, and then it's going to explode again for weeks 5 and maybe even 6. This is just such a money bag that I feel like they're moving on from. Why do you think, outside of the obvious, right? Like, okay, we got to make room for Thunderbolts and whatever else comes out after that. But why move on so fast?
Honestly, I don't know why you would want to move on so fast. And maybe they thought it could be good. They don't. Maybe they didn't think it would be as popular as it's been, as you know, as it's blown up and everything.
Mm.
That's really the only thing that comes to mind for me is that maybe they just didn't think it would do as well as they thought as it has. Because I mean, I knew from the trailer it was going to be great, and you
Yeah.
know, it exceeded every expectation I had for that movie.
Hmm.
So, and I'm somebody who does not like. I do not seek out horror movies. I do not watch them. It is very rare that I go and see them, and that honestly, I don't really classify that as a horror movie, but I guess a lot of people are classifying it as that. But it was great.
I would say I think your statement at the end there was exactly right. Of the horror movies, that was the least horror movie you could watch.
Hmm.
It was spooky at times and it
Hmm.
had gore, but it was more of a thriller and it was more of like a
Hmm.
mystery. Or yeah,
It
it
was
just
always like well, wait, is this where the vampire's gonna pop out? And you're just waiting for that first person to get
yeah. It
bit
was
or something to happen to him.
the best horror movies or the best thrillers don't rely on cheap jump scares. They don't rely on
Hmm.
gore. They tell a
Hmm.
beautiful story and it's scary innately
That's what
because
it
of that.
did.
And that's exactly what they did. So, what a win for Warner Brothers. And we're going to stick with Warner Brothers. We got a lot of Warner Brothers talk in between politics. So, stick around for all that. But right now, we're going to stay with Warner Brothers on the brain. A Minecraft movie climbs back up the charts to finish third in its fifth week in theaters, earning another 13.7 over the weekend, or 13.7 million over the weekend. The film quickly approaches the 400 million mark domestically and is just about to reach that $1 billion club, that ever elusive and that ever important mark. If you've made $1 billion in theaters, you know you're in the upper echelon and you've hit like Minecraft movie is going to be in the same conversation as Barbie, as all these other films, right? Like what? It's so I
Kind of
mean,
crazy.
I know. And so let I said earlier, Warner Brothers did this twice, right? They announced they were going to release Sinners and they listened to their audience. They also did this with the Minecraft movie because they released what they called the Block Party Edition. And essentially, it was a sing along version of the movie where they said they wanted or they encouraged audiences to, and this is a quote, sing and meme along.
That include throw popcorn and drinks as well,
They
or
just said have fun. To the detriment of every theater chain in America, they said, "Hey, this is where
oh
you can go
man,
and do that." And I'm sure, have you seen that? There's that still running around. It's going on like Instagram and TikTok and stuff. And it's the image of the schedule, and it's got the Minecraft movie start, and then it's got Chicken Jockey, and it's just got
oh
the
Lord,
timestamps for when these things happen because they've
I
got it
didn't
timed
I
out.
didn't see
Because
that, but that's hilarious
these
though.
theater chains are like, we know when this is happening, 25 minutes into the movie, and
Oh
it's every
man,
showing throughout the day. And so it's just Warner Brothers said, you know what, we like money, and so they went ahead and threw it out there. But Warner Brothers is doing everything they can. They could have this year could potentially be the year that saves them. They're in deep water. We'll talk about that in segment 3. But with these two films being absolute smash hits, they could make $1.5 billion or more with these two films alone if they can keep them going on their trajectory. And then they've got Superman coming out in the summer. So if that makes another billion, they've made 2.5 billion
mm,
or more with 3 films in a year. And I'm sure that's not their only film this year. They're only 3 films this year.
mm-hmm.
So what a great HBO's going off with everything there with The Last of Us, and they've got all their shows coming out this year. So only good things thus far from David Zaslav, which is it makes it like I almost want to choke when I say that because I cannot stand that
I was
man.
gonna say I know you do not like that
I do
guy.
not like that man, but what a good stretch, good run for him. The man almost killed it, and now he's getting lucky. He's getting real lucky. He's walking that tightrope. He's getting real lucky. So we're gonna go ahead and wrap out the top 5 here because there's only 2 more in this, and they're not really that much to talk about. So rounding out the top 5, Amazon MGM's The Accountant 2 finished 4th after earning another 9.4 million domestically. Thus far, the action thriller has earned just over 54 million worldwide in 2 weeks in theaters, which is not bad. I'd be interested to see what they spent, but 54 million, you'd want to see them probably get closer to 100 because I know that film is probably expensive to have John Bernthal and Batflack himself. But
Oh yeah,
I mean, not terrible, especially when you got to consider too. There's no way they could have planned for Sinners to have been as big as it is, and they've got a Minecraft movie to deal with, and now Thunderbolts. So, all things considered, I think they're doing pretty well. That cannot be said for our 5th place entry, and that is Until Dawn. Sony Pictures video game adaptation rounds out our top 5 here and has earned a measly $3.8 million at the box office. There's a drastic fall from even 3 and 4, but especially 4 and 5. The film has earned 34.7 worldwide, which is not good. It's just, to say the least, to make it obvious, it's a very bad mark for a film that probably cost a lot of money. I know I saw that trailer and those teasers going around everywhere on my feeds, so I can only imagine how much they spent on marketing alone, and they can't even make $40 million in 2 weeks. Not good. So I almost called you Jake. That's how on script
Hey,
I am.
I understand it. I understand. You know, that's what you used to.
Matthew, what do you think about our top 5?
Well, I mean, I definitely think I'm not surprised at number 1 and 2. I expected it to go that way. Through Minecraft, I knew it was still out there, but I don't think I knew it was doing as well as it still is, which it's really not that surprising. Not my cup of tea, but I know I'm a little bit older, so I didn't grow up with Minecraft like maybe you did, or some of these other people did. The Accountant 2. I never saw the first one, but the one big complaint I've seen about that movie was that they felt like it was most fans have felt like it's a little too silly compared to the first one. Apparently, the first one was more serious, so this one's more of a brother to brother kind of flick, which I don't mind that. I mean, I like John Barenthal. Until Dawn, never played the video game, and just looking at the trailer for it, I'm not surprised that it's doing as poorly as it is. I just feel like if you're gonna make a video game adaptation, it really needs to be something like a Minecraft that is like beloved by like millions of people.
Yeah.
And not something like that's just, oh well, some people like this.
The thing is that I can understand why there was an Until Dawn movie. The problem with the Until Dawn movie is it's not a recreation of the story from the game. It's completely original and completely. So it's like, I have a problem with films like that. So like, this is kind of controversial, and I feel like I'm going to get yelled at. However, a film that I love in terms of its story alone and its cinematography, All Eyes on the Western Front. That film that came out like 3 or 4 years ago, that won Best Picture, like that guy, or maybe it was just nominated. So that is or All Quiet, not All Eyes. I'm so sorry. That film is technically a remake of a 1920 something. Like, it's one of the most inspirational and one of the most important films in cinema history, because that film made right after World War I, using actual like German vets from World War I as like stand-ins in the background and as stunt doubles in the back, using their stories to help tell the story of just how the front lines are just blood. There's no honor, there's no glory, and they're telling it from the perspective of the losing side, which never happens, especially when it won Best Picture in the early 20s. I think it was early 20s, maybe mid 20s. It's a very violent film. So it's like shocking that in a day and age like 1920s, just in the world, that a film that gory, that gruesome, from that perspective, would be able to win that award. The new All Quiet on the Western Front is of the same idea. So the story it's got the same point, and it's got the same name, and it's told from German filmmakers with German actors. But after that, that's where the similarities end. The themes are the same, but the story's not. There are a lot of scenes in it that are either outright removed or completely altered to where they're almost unrecognizable. And while the story is beautiful, I feel like they chose the name almost like clickbait to get people to watch it. And I have a problem with that, because like, yes, like the thing is, All Quiet on the Western Front, the new one, has more of a stake than Until Dawn does to use the title, because at least some of the things are the same. But I was really frustrated by it, because I was like, no, but this isn't that story. Like, it's the same idea, but it's not that story. A lot of the most impactful moments were just removed or changed to where you couldn't even recognize it. So it bothered me a lot. And I think Until Dawn, I would have the same problem. And so if I think it's falling and flailing for good reason, because if you're going to use the title, at least use the story.
Mhm.
It's okay to
'Cause you
change. It's okay to alter original material, but it's not okay to just ignore it and use the same title.
kind of like what they're doing with The Last of Us, where you keep the story the same, make minor changes, where you can improve it and make it better,
Like,
that kind of
it's
thing.
the
I'm all
same.
for that.
Yeah.
hmm So yeah, and the thing is, and as The Last of Us creators know, um, when you make a video game adaptation, you're gonna know if you did well or if you did not do well, because the people who put all the hours in to play that game, they are gonna let you know what they really think about it.
Yeah. So, with that out of the way, we're going to finish off. I have just a few different points to make here. So, other news from the box office, two films that are interesting. Nicolas Cage starring The Surfer entered the box office, finished just outside the top 10, earning, let me see, I have it right here, earning 6,700, or yeah, 600,074. I cannot read. Just under a million. I'm so sorry. I'm not going to be able to read that. I know how to read numbers. I'm just tired. Just under $1 million in his first weekend, which, man, just outside the top 10, can't even earn $1 million. And then we have Alec
Mm.
Baldwin's Rust, which earned $25,000.
Ooh,
That
that
film
Rust,
finished
the one, the
27th. Yes.
oh, I didn't realize that was that one. Okay. Yeah, I saw the preview for Nick Cage's The Surfer.
It looks
It looked
interesting.
it looks interesting, very Nick Cage, a
Yeah.
typical Nick Cage kind of movie. So I mean,
The number was
I'd give it a watch.
674,000, by the way. I could not read that number for whatever reason. It made just under $1 million. But yeah, I think those are interesting. I've seen a lot of praise for The Surfer, unlike Rust, which I think was cursed from the beginning. I mean, it's
Unfortunately,
to finish off. Yeah,
that's
we
got to be really kind of like the kick in the butt right there. You not only does all the stuff off camera happen, but then you don't make a great deal of money on top of all that. Just makes it not even all that worth it almost.
I don't even know if I want to see it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't
hmm
know. It's just I just kind of feel like before I might have had a different perspective, but now I don't know. It's just like now that I see it and
hmm
it's just out. I don't know. I feel like it's fine to show in festivals to honor the DP. I can't remember her
hmm
name off the top of my head, but I feel like releasing it to theaters to try to make a profit probably was a I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how to feel about it in this moment, but I think it's a great place to leave off. So coming up next, we talk about Donald Trump's proposed tariffs on international films. I told you we were getting political. Stick around. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Beyond the Screen. As always, again, I'm your host, and I'm joined today by Matthew Lemons. If you're here and you haven't watched segment one, how'd you get here? But just to recash, Matt's here on an emergency call. He's filling in. He's saving my butt. So thank you, Matt. I
Hey,
start this.
always happy to help.
I start our main news segment a little differently because it's kind of sad. And it's a little bit annoying, and it's going to divide some people, and I just wanted to start off on a good note before I got to reading what is a page and a half of notes that I have on this one topic. I have 4 different sources across almost 2 pages of information. So buckle up because I have a lot of reading to do, and I'm sorry for what's ahead, but we're going to talk about it because it's the biggest thing to happen this week, and it happened last night. So the rundown. Yesterday on Truth Social, of all places, President Donald Trump announced a plan to enact a 100% tariff on all films made outside of the United States. And if you think that's crazy, you would be correct. That is a very bad thing to do. Anyway, we'll continue. So the Post, the notorious Post, I know there's a lot of them, but it states from Donald Trump, quote, "The movie industry in America is dying in all caps, a very fast death. Other countries are offering all sorts of incentives to draw our filmmakers and studios away from the United States. Hollywood and many other areas within the USA are being devastated. This is a concerted effort by other nations and therefore a national security threat." This comes less than a month after China threatened to reduce, and I put that in air quotes, to reduce, or that's because it's a quote, not because I'm being sarcastic. Hollywood films being imported in response to the broader tariff movement. So yeah, this looks like that killed any hope of trying to rectify a Chinese box office and film deal between America and that country in terms of films and exchanging IPs. So if you can imagine, every news outlet and their mom has covered this story and spoken to an unimaginable amount of people. CNN, and I know we're starting with CNN, but please forgive me, it's the first article that popped up, and I went through a ton of them. CNN spoke to an industry insider who said, quote, "On first blush, it's shocking and would represent a virtually complete halt of production. But in reality, he has no jurisdiction to do this, and it's too complex to enforce." CNN also spoke to Jay Schurz, who is the vice chairman of the United Talent Agency, which is the one of, if not the biggest free, like they represent actors and other talents within the United States. They're one of the biggest in this country. So Jay Schurz is a chairman of this country, UTA. He states, quote, "The fact is, it's cheaper for Hollywood studios to pay for everyone to get on planes, pay for hotels, because the cost of labor, lack of rebates, and the ability to make things overseas is infinitely cheaper." Those of you listening and might be going, really? CNN? You're right. CNN is not the most reputable, which is why I also pulled sources from the BBC. So they did a great job in their article, which I can have linked in the show description. They broke down just how confusing this tariff is on its value because it's so vague. There's no description. There's no real definition for what is a international film being tariffed. So they ask questions such as, what about whether the tariffs would also apply, also apply to American film companies producing films abroad? They also make a point about like, is this just international films, like production companies? So they have a lot of questions here. If this is about the former, if this is about any films made overseas, that would impact, let's say they go retroactively. We go backwards. Last year, American films made abroad was Gladiator 2, Deadpool and Wolverine, and Wicked. All filmed overseas. All, if this is applied retroactively, if they go to these production companies and say, hey, you got to pay this tax now, all those film companies have to pay, I think the majority of those were Warner Brothers, they would have to pay, Warner Brothers and Disney, a tax, a 100% tax, if that is applied to films, to companies filming overseas, not just international film companies. So another point that they made is we also don't know yet if these tariffs would be applied, as I just said, retroactively. So if these points are to be taken seriously, major American productions are in serious jeopardy. Currently, the running list of American-made films filming overseas include, now, we're looking forward, Avengers at Doomsday, Spider-Man Brand New Day, both filmed in London, Avatar Fire and Ash in New Zealand, Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, which is also in London, Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning, which is going all across the globe, Ballerina, the John Wick spinoff that's in the Czech Republic, Star Wars Starfighter, the newest Ryan Gosling-led Sean Levy film from Lucasfilms, that's filmed in the UK, and that's being planned right now. And that's everywhere. That's like the first 5 or 6 quick films of like the blockbuster type that are American films that will bring a lot of money into American cinemas, into the American economy, being filmed overseas, that this would, in theory, impact if it's to the scope that this man says. So even if this is just a tariff on films produced by foreign filmmakers, do I have to explain why cutting ourselves off from the rest of the world in terms of art, history, news, perspective, etc. is bad? And if you don't agree with that, you need to change your perspective and you need to get educated, because if you liked Parasite, if you liked Mickey 17, both those films are produced and directed by Bong Joon-ho, who is not American. Specifically, Parasite was produced by a South Korean company, which that would impact. If you like Doctor Who, as I do, I love Doctor Who, that show can no longer be affordable for Disney Plus or for these other companies to import into the States to show on our streaming services and on our TVs. So it's not just about entertainment. Isolationism is the death of education. Do not limit our perspective. That's a little rant. But anyway, we'll move on. However, right after the president's comments last night, this is now according to USA Today, The White House official X or Twitter account took to the platform to issue the following statement, quote, "No final decisions on foreign film tariffs have been made." And White House spokesperson Kush Desai states, quote, "The administration is exploring all options to deliver on President Trump's directive to safeguard our country's national and economic security while making Hollywood great again." If things couldn't further, or if the pot could not get further stirred, President Trump himself issued a follow-up statement today during an Oval Office event that he and the White House would be consulting the film industry before making any final decisions, which is not what happened before last night. Anyway, he said, quote, "I want to make sure they're happy with it, and I'm not looking to hurt the industry. I want to help the industry. Keep that in mind. When it comes to how the film industry is doing in terms of finances and importing versus exporting, things seem to have been doing well as of a report from the Motion Picture Association, or the MPA, just less than 2 years ago. In a 2023 report, it was found that Hollywood has, quote, a positive balance of trade in every major market in the world, with a trade surplus of $15.3 billion and supports 2.3 million jobs. The article did include, however, it went over to describe how more productions, as we said earlier, they're moving overseas just because it's so much cheaper. So I'll give all sides. I'm not going to cherry pick quotes and cherry pick information. And finally, the last source that I pulled for this giant spiel is from Deadline, the entertainment news outlet. They reached out to California Governor Gavin Newsom late last night for a potential quote. While he is yet to respond personally to the entertainment news outlet, his senior advisor for communications, Bob Saladeh, did give a statement in direct response to Trump's claims that other countries trying to lure in American productions are, quote, a concerted effort by other nations and therefore a national security threat. So he took that specific quote and he responded to it. So not Gavin Newsom, but his senior communications guy, Bob Saladeh. So Saladeh states, quote, "We believe he has no authority to impose tariffs under the International Economic Emergency Powers Act, since tariffs are not listed as a remedy under that law." So long story short, guy issues tariffs. Country he doesn't like says, well, we just won't bring in your films. Guy says, actually, I don't like any films not made in America. We'll tariff all of them, without giving information on whether or not that's films made by Americans in other countries or if it's just made by other countries. Then had he and his staff walk it back the next day, then saying, oh, actually, we'll consult Hollywood and we'll get their input and I'm just trying to help. On top of everyone is saying this guy doesn't have the power to do this. So and he said, I'm going to sign an executive order. But an executive order is almost a suggestion to certain extents, especially to things that the executive branch has no authority over. So, like, i.e., signing an executive order to kill the Department of Education. The Department of Education is housed under Congress, which the executive branch does not have control over. So, he can't, that's more of a suggestion. Same thing here. He's saying, I'm going to sign an executive order putting 100% tariff. Can he even enforce it because it's too large of a request? That is a question that a lot of people are asking with no definitive answers, and that a lot of experts, industry experts, government experts are saying, I don't think that's possible. So with that in mind, and I've been rambling for 10 minutes, Matt, I'm almost scared to ask you your opinions because you are probably the most, I'm not going to say radical, but you're the most like in one direction of all the guests we've had on so far.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm definitely very against this. I know he says that I know he says he wants to help, but this, I mean, okay, let's say for an example, he is able to do this. This is going to hurt everyone involved with the movies, everyone who wants to see the movies, because as much as he wants everything to be about America, to tell the stories that people want to tell, it's not all about America. If you're telling a story that's in another country, you want to make it as real as possible. Like you said, it's cheaper. I know Australia is another country that a lot of movies get filmed too because of
In New Zealand,
the benefit. Yeah, that too. Like just think Game of Thrones. Just think if this had happened when Game of Thrones was going on, the entire world would have a meltdown.
You know, two of the biggest trilogies to have ever been made ever are The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit,
Yep. And they're
all
both in New
filmed in New
Zealand.
Zealand. All
Yeah.
6 of them.
And I mean, I'm telling you, you think people have had a meltdown now, but you put a tariff on Avengers Doomsday, and you are going to see riots like you've never seen before. So it's going to be bad. I just don't see any positive about this. Is because my thing is I understand, you want to put tariffs on some things, but at what point, where does it stop? Because like you said, the isolationism, we can't. There's no possibility where that ends great for us. We need people just like they need us, and you got to meet them in the middle. Is kind of where my mindset goes.
Yeah, and so I have kind of like, and I understand my perspective is a little different. Like I work in higher education, like
Mhm.
I've been through college, and and so have you, and so have a lot of people, and even people who disagree with my points. But I guess the point is that like I have lived a life where I have been privileged to get different perspectives, right? Like I know people from all walks of life. I have family who
Mhm.
believe one thing, and I have some of my closest friends who believe the exact opposite. And because of my perspective, I've been able to see things from all sides and understand and really have an opinion that's my own, which I value very highly. Like if there's one thing I give myself credit for, it's that I feel like I feel like I can see things objectively, which is why like I say these things and I get so frustrated. If anyone knows anything, one of the most frustrated I've been on this show was discussing previous things happening in from our current political regime towards the Department of Education. And I think this is just an extension of that, because if you want to control a society, you limit education and you limit art, because art and
Mhm.
that ability to express, and the ability to express elegantly, and the ability to express
Mhm.
clearly, those are things that's how you have independence. That's how you challenge. That is how you
Mhm.
continue to grow, and to limit these things, to cut off different perspectives, to cut off the outside, to limit education inside. That's how you control. And I think that this is
Mhm.
just an extension of that. I think I think on its base, I can understand if the whole point was we want to see more things made in America. I can understand that. But the thing is, you can't make everything in America. That's
Mhm.
just, whether it's resources unavailable, whether it's the manpower is not there, whatever, right? Not everything's going to be made is going to be have the ability to be made in America. And to go back to film, if you want American films made in America, make it cheaper to do that.
Mhm.
It's
That's what I was
not
gonna say.
because films don't want, or filmmakers or production companies don't
Mhm.
want to be here. They can't afford it.
Mhm.
Rob Lowe was on a podcast or some being interviewed by, I think it was the oh gosh, I'm not gonna remember his name now, but he's like a sportscaster, but he also interviews like pop culture people. He was interviewing Rob Lowe, and Rob Lowe was talking about how it's cheaper for him to film his game show that he hosts in Ireland than it is to film in his backyard. He lives in LA because of
Mhm.
how the film taxes work in California. And that's not
Well, and
just in
don't
California. It's in Atlanta.
I was gonna
It's
say that's another popular place that gets stuff
it's
gets made. I
all over
know.
the United States. The
Mhm.
like so I don't want to dox us or anything, but we live in Kentucky, and Kentucky has
Mhm.
a huge cinematic like tax break for filmmakers trying to come here. The state is very beautiful. The state is very ornate. You have everything from cityscapes to what looks like a rainforest to just country hillbilly flatlands and
Mhm.
hills and mountains. There's no setting except for maybe a desert. And I'm sure if you frame certain dry spots correctly, it would probably look like a desert.
Probably.
So it's like,
Mhm.
you have every like biome and genome that you could ever want for a backdrop and for a film setting. Old, new, city, country, dry, wet. Like you could have it here. The thing is that the infrastructure is not here. I was just having a conversation with a buddy of mine who's a filmmaker. Is like people want to come here. There's no infrastructure, which is
Mhm.
another thing. Like if you want people to be here, tax breaks, tax incentives, what other places are doing, but also do what you can to build that infrastructure from the federal level. If you like,
Mhm.
I can understand wanting to have these things happening economically in the states. However, I think this is more than that. to start, and two, I don't think there's actually any incentive to make that happen outside of, hey, we'll tax it. Like, I feel like if you really wanted this to happen, you would do what the governor of Kentucky's doing and actually trying to make it like financially viable for these companies to come in. Like, I have so many opinions on this, and it hurts my heart. Again, I work as marketing for creative arts at a public university. You know, I don't know what perspective you thought I was going to give other than this one, but it's just, I don't know. It is so frustrating. It is so devastating.
Just think about all the movies you talked about last year that were filmed overseas, and how much money those movies made. How much money would be missed out on that right there?
Yep.
Just between, what was it? You said Deadpool, Wolverine, Gladiator 2, and
Well, those
Wicked.
were film overseas. So
yeah, those three alone.
The Brutalist was made by who? It was A24 in Focus Features, but was that one made overseas?
I mean, I would assume so. I know it was.
I think it was. The Brutalist, I know Amelia Perez was. These are all Oscar nominees. On top of the more financially viable ones we've already talked about, whether they were made by foreign filmmakers or whether they were made overseas.
Yeah. And I'm telling you right now, Avengers Doomsday and Spider-Man Brand New Day are easily going to make possibly at least 1.5 billion, maybe 2.
We're talking about they could make $1 billion each.
Yes.
Yeah.
Easily.
Yeah.
So I think Doomsday for sure. You do Spider-Man, depending on how they go about that.
Not sponsored, by the way.
Yeah.
Sorry. I just realized it was visible.
No. But I hope somebody, some of these executives at some of these bigger companies, maybe Disney, maybe Warner Brothers, somebody can go over there and get through to him and like, look, you're going to do more damage than you are good. We get where you're coming from, and I get it. You don't want America to get left in the dust, but we also can't neglect all these other places. Like, oh, come and film. Like, what is the incentive for somebody from another country to come in and film their movie here? If you want something like that, you have to provide something for them too. You can't demand it all be for you and that's it. So
no, I completely agree. And we could sit here and beat a dead horse, but we're almost 50 minutes in.
Sure.
I want to give people reprieve from political talk, so we're about to move on. But it's just I know I come on here and I want this to be a safe space for everybody. Like, if you like movies, it doesn't matter where you come from. You're gonna like, you can like movies and you can like the arts, and you could be on either side of the spectrum in terms of political. So I don't want this to come across as being like, if you believe in this guy or you believe the messaging. Because thing is, again, from my perspective, I get it. Like, you wanted something different. This is a guy who applied more effort to your values, and you just didn't feel like you felt like things were bad, and you didn't feel like the other party was talking to you. I get it. So it's like, to an extent, I don't judge. I do think that there were things that were warned that are now happening, that whatever, but I get it, and so I don't want this to come across as like you're wrong for voting for that guy, because the thing is, you can't, my something that my family always lives by is like, you can't change the past. So it's like, you can only move forward. We now have to fight for this because higher education, perspective, the arts, creativity, that's all under attack. So yeah, that's where I'll leave it off. So if you guys like your movies, I know this is a film podcast, so to watch this here, you have to somewhat enjoy them, especially if you're almost an hour into like our 17th to no, this is like our 25th straight episode. Like, come on, like we have to, we all have some common ground here. Anyway, with that out of the way, after the break, we're going to finally get back to film news, and we're going to talk about something not Donald Trump, and we're going to do our quickish hits segment. So stick around. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Beyond the Screen. You've made it to segment 3, our quickish hits. Usually we go through this as fast as possible, but inevitably we're going to get hung up on some form of conversation. It doesn't matter if it's me or Jake, or I think the problem is me. I've decided, and I will admit at my faults. I am a
That's the
talker.
first stage.
I'm a talker, and I will babble. But with that out of the way, we always start this segment by thanking you. Thanking you guys for being here, because again, we're 50 minutes in. We'll be over an hour. And the fact that you've listened thus far, the fact that you've put up with politics and our discussions, the fact that you listen to our bad takes, if you think of it that way, and just our off-topic nonsense, it means the world. And so just thank you so much for being here. And I'll extend this to you, Matt. Thank you for being here, because I called you about 30 minutes before we started recording to say, please be on the pod.
Hey, it's a pleasure to be here. I've enjoyed talking. I know some of it's been good, some of it's been bad, but I've had fun either way.
Yeah, man, and you've been awesome, and so thank you so much for being here. And Jake, hopefully your truck does better soon, because I missed you on here. And Matt, we got to have you come back as a guest when Jake's on, because we'll have fun conversation.
I would love to.
Yeah,
I would love to.
So, but anyway, thank you guys again. And if you like what you hear, give us a thumbs up. Hit the like button, do your thing, subscribe, follow, share, especially tell people about us. Big changes are coming. We're going to try to expand the show in as many ways as possible, including a new look. These will be slow things that will be trial and error. But if you've liked what you've seen so far, just wait till we can start really growing this thing, because I think that I think we got some fun stuff coming up. But with that out of the way, we'll go ahead and hop into our quickest hits. We'll start off with DC. We talked earlier, and I mentioned, hey, Warner Bros. Might be in some trouble, or they could have the biggest year ever, because they've already made, essentially, between their two releases currently, over $1 billion, closer to $1.5 billion. They've made a ton of money. If Superman can hit, they will be making a ton of money, especially. And that could be the thing that saves them in the long run. And we'll get to that here in a second. But first, I want to talk about Clayface, the body horror film from Mike Flanagan that will officially take place in James Gunn DCU, begins filming in October, which is exciting. But backing up a little bit, going back to our Superman talk, according to Screen Rant, Superman needs to succeed. DC needs to succeed in order to save Warner Brothers, lest Warner Brothers goes, quote, the way of Fox. That's where we're at with David Zaslav and Warner Brothers Discovery. They're closer to being Warner Brothers Studios owned by Disney than they are being Warner Brothers Discovery ran by David Zaslav. So, in a quote to Screen Rant, a vet from Warner Brothers talking about Superman in this summer's release says, quote, an essential element of the stock price is believing that the IP of DC is meaningful. David bet big that they can show the world that the DC IP can have real value. Superman is the first movie. That will set the tone. They have a tremendous amount riding on it. So, Matt, with that in mind, with that comment, with a lot of industry experts, and according to this, they didn't name him. It was I would probably not want to be named either. But anonymously, this guy, a Warner Brothers vet within the organization, talked to Screen Rant and said, dude, we're bad shape and we're riding on this. They've had successes, Sinners, a Minecraft movie, and now all they're riding on is Superman. Kind of give me your thoughts.
I think it's I wouldn't say similar, but back when Marvel was kind of on the edge and the Iron Man came out, everything was riding on Iron Man, and the success of Iron Man propelled them to where they are currently. I think if this Superman movie is done right, which I mean, the trailers that I've seen, it looks beautiful. I trust James Gunn. He does great job with his movies. I think they did the right thing with starting off with Superman, because when I think of DC, I think of Superman, I think of Batman, Wonder Woman, the trio, all that, So I think it's a really good way to start it and kick it off. But yeah, I definitely think they probably need this, because really, when was the last year that Warner Brothers had multiple hits in the same year? Like, it's been a while.
Yeah.
And that's a big deal for me, is that they need that to help propel them, I think. So as many L's as they've taken under Zaslav and everything else, yeah. because DC, and as much as I love, I trust me, I love Marvel, but personally, I am probably more of a DC person. I love Batman, I love the Flash,
Mm-hmm.
I love Superman, all those people. I love, the Justice League. I think the best thing for them is if DC can be successful, because I think one, that'll, they may go on a Marvel type run, and two, Marvel will be like, oh, well, we need to step up our game even more than what we already are, because and in the end, I think the fans are the ones who will ultimately win if both DC and Marvel stay at a high trajectory for movies.
I'm stealing this quote, but I cannot remember who from. Competition breeds excellence is the quote, and I think you're completely
Mhm.
right. Right, Marvel suffered for 5-6 years because they had no
Mhm.
competition, and they told their story, and they were like, well, let's just keep printing money at this point.
Mhm.
I don't know anyone who, and there are definitely people out there, but personally, I don't know anyone who I've talked to about this who doesn't say what you said about DC. They're like, yeah, I like DC better in terms of their characters because their characters are so much more recognizable. Like yes,
Mhm.
you have like Wolverine, Spider Man, Captain America, like, and now
But
you
some of the
could
most iconic bad
you'll
guys
say
are
Iron Man
DC.
now. You'll say Iron
Mhm.
Man now, but
Mhm.
25 years ago you did not, right? So it's but even 25 years ago, Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, The Flash, and then you talk about villains, Joker. Like these characters are so much they're universally beloved and they're so much more
Mhm.
fleshed out and they're so much deeper than a lot of what Marvel had until this run with the MCU had ever like fleshed out. So,
Mhm.
with DC, the problem is they've just had bad storytelling and they've tried too hard to
Mhm.
be Marvel. And I think that
That
what
was the biggest that was the biggest thing I had against them, was that when they did Batman versus Superman, it was like they wanted to go straight into like an Avengers level movie without doing the Iron Man's 1 and 2, the Thor's 1 and
Mhm.
2, the Captain America's 1. You got to build that world before you're going to do that, and that's what they're doing now.
I completely agree. And I think a big thing riding on this too is who they cast as the Batman within their universe. I think that's a big deal. And I think they should go Jensen Ackles. I think I
Mhm.
think I think that he is a guy who wants it. He's voiced the character before and fans love him. I
There's
think
a couple that I like for Batman too.
mhm.
One, he's probably a little too big, muscular wise, but his
Oh,
Alan
yeah, I
Richardson.
knew you were going to say that. That's
I
another one that says he'd like
I
to do
I
it.
love the show Reacher. I love the show Reacher. He's a phenomenal actor. He can play comedy. He can play Reacher. He can do it all. I mean, I think he would be great as well. But Jensen Ackles, I love Jensen Ackles as well. I want someone who can fit that. Who I can whip you up, but I can also
Yeah.
get all dressed up and look the part.
Man,
So.
I wish that this was happening 3 years earlier because then you could take in the Robert Pattinson because I feel like he
Mhm.
embodies the character so well. I just feel like he's
Mhm.
not gotten to that point to where he's learned to be the playboy
Mhm.
billionaire by day and or
Mhm.
the whatever and then the bat by night. And so I would have loved to have
Mhm.
seen, and who knows what's going on with the sequel at this point. But that's
Mhm.
something that like we could be having a completely different conversation if James Gunn was hired 2 or 3 years prior.
Mhm.
But I think that's the biggest thing riding on it is okay, like did they cast Superman right and what kind of story did James Gunn tell? But also I think something that's already succeeding for them is the fact that James Gunn's telling the stories more like Star Wars. We talked about that a couple times on here.
Mhm.
It's like they're not all super connected. They can be their own standalone, but you bounce around the stories a little bit. And I'm assuming when they need to come together, they will, right? But like if you're not in the Justice
Mhm.
League, like Peacemaker might never see the Justice League, and that's okay. Like that'll be
Yeah.
cool to see its own thing. Well, it's cool to see how it impacts the overall world, but it's also cool to think like, okay, like these are things that there's never an end to the stories. So I would like to see that continue to be fleshed out. Let make it its own thing. But
I
yeah,
think the biggest negative critique I think one of the bigger things that Superman is gonna have to overcome is the Zack Snyder Superman fans, because
they're deep.
that
They run deep.
almost they it's I don't want to use the word like cult following, but it almost feels like that, like they believe in him so much,
We
like I saw
yeah,
a post today by Zack Snyder. I guess it was God, what's the guy who played Superman?
Henry Cavill.
Um, that it was his birthday and he was like, happy birthday to the greatest Superman ever, then just the flood of comments, is just kind of crazy. So I think that's probably one of their biggest detractors, I think. So if
Yeah.
because every preview that's come out, I've seen like, I don't think I've ever seen a comic book movie that like where there's no like groundwork laid for this character yet, and there's already so many. Well, why is he screaming? He's Superman. He shouldn't be feeling pain.
Yeah.
Like just all the negative comments. Just trying to rip it apart.
Doesn't in the comic books when he feels the sunlight
Well,
directed, doesn't he
the
feel
part,
pain?
yeah,
Yeah.
and that's what it was. It was the shot where the robots are holding him down, and he's got the sun. What they don't say in the comment is he's got like multiple fractured ribs, all these bones. So he's being healed, and when
They're
you're being
snapping
healed,
back
it's
into
gonna
place.
you're
Yeah.
snapping back. It's gonna be painful. So it
Yeah.
makes sense to me.
No.
And the
And
Guy Gardner thing too. That was another. I think I've heard Jake mention it before too about Guy
he
Gardner.
thinks he looks
It
so
is a
dumb.
goofy hate. He does, but I mean,
That's a
I
character though.
appreciate comic book accuracy, no matter how silly or dumb it looks.
I will say this. This will be the last thing I say is the reason there's so much pushback is because you do have the Zack Snyder fans, and I don't think Zack Snyder's a bad filmmaker. I just get mad at him because I feel like he will force things that aren't genuine. So like the Snyder cut with Batman v Superman was a big deal because it was something the fans wanted because they knew you watched it happen in real time with Joss Whedon entrance into the film, completely changing the Justice League, Zack Snyder's exit, and how he felt like it was unfinished, and the fans were like, no, like we liked what we were getting at first, let's go back, and like it made sense, and definitely Zack Snyder's version was a lot better. The problem is that Zack Snyder, now that he knows that's a thing, he tried to do it with his Star Wars ripoff on Netflix, but
I never watched that.
he had every Rebel Moon. They're both bad, but he had every reason to make his cut because he owned the film. Like Netflix essentially said, okay, make it. And he released a film. It was panned. Nobody liked it. And then he said, well, if I get enough retweets, I'll release the director's cut. And it's like, Zach, why are you not releasing the director's cut to begin with? Before all that, I would have called Zack Snyder the present day Christopher Nolan, who makes good films, but he has like a trope that's annoying. So it's like Chris Nolan, or not Chris Nolan, sorry. I mean, Michael Bay. I don't know why I said Chris Nolan.
Oh, that actually checks.
Michael Bay. So sorry, I'll rephrase that. I will say Zack Snyder is the present day Michael Bay, not Chris Nolan, to where he has tropes that are annoying, but that like he makes good
slow motion.
Yeah. The slow motion for Zack Snyder is Michael Bay's explosions, right? Like they're unnecessary.
100%.
Like they're coming from a mile away. They're unnecessary. But like formerly, before Rebel Moon, you're like, okay, like it's still a good movie. It's fine. Like, but then he released Rebel Moon, and then he was like, if you give me enough retweets, I'll release the director's cut. And it's like, Zach, you're trying to force something that's done. So now I have not a lot of respect for that man as a filmmaker because I feel like he's cash cowing a little bit.
I mean, the slow motion was just. I mean, if you took out like 90% of the slow motion from the director's cut of the Justice League, I mean it goes from like a 4-hour movie to a 3-hour movie. It was that much slow motion. It felt like, anyways.
Yeah, and so that's the last thing I'll say. But yeah, I think that you have Zack Snyder fans, and then you have Henry Cavill fans who just happen to be on the same side where they're like, oh, it should have been what it was before. Because if Zack Snyder was still around, Henry Cavill would still be around. And that's like the big reason. I think you probably should have kept Henry Cavill. But the thing is, I don't mind the way the new Superman looks. What's his name? I can't remember.
I can't think of his name either. I know he was in that Twister movie they did last year.
David
Sweat. Corin Sweat.
Yep.
I get it too, but and on the same note with Henry Cavill, I'm surprised that he would have wanted to come back. I mean, when you talk about people who are done dirty, I mean, Wonder Woman got a sequel before Superman got a sequel, and Man of Steel was it wasn't the I don't know that I'd say it's the best Superman movie ever, but it's definitely not a bad movie.
I don't mind Man of Steel. I just feel like it should have ended a long time before it did. But anyway,
Yeah,
we
I
could keep
agree.
talking about DC. We've got to move on.
Oh yeah.
So we got 3 more pieces of news here. So we're going to go through. We have a bunch of trailers released. of which we had A24 and Benny Safdie's The Smashing Machine, starring Dwayne Johnson as UFC legend Mark Kerr. Oh my gosh, that looks like his best role
Yes.
he's ever had. It looks insane.
If he's going to win an Oscar, it's going to be this movie. Right? I cannot express how excited I am to see
If
that.
Dwayne Johnson, after a decade of being the highest paid actor in the world and counting, wins an Oscar, he's in the conversation for one of the best actors of all time. And I don't even want to say, I hate to say it. It's a meme to call him the same actor in every role, because up to this point he has been. But if he has the chops to hop from pro wrestling to acting for 20 something years, make billions and billions and billions, and then turn around and at the not even near the end of his career, but then turn around after he made his bag and get an Oscar.
Yeah.
That's the conversation.
And I get why he's done all the different roles, because if you know anything about his story, you know, his upbringing and just bouncing from place to place.
Yeah.
I would probably take every role was thrown at me as well. I mean,
This is
you never
what I'll
know
say.
when the money's going to run out.
I have given Dwayne Johnson so much crap for this stuff, but this will be the thing that will change my perspective on him, because the thing is that before, with Red One, there's a meme online about like they have like 8 images of Dwayne Johnson in a forest setting in tan, like a button-up shirt and tan pants with like 1 or 2 buttons undone from the top with his eyebrow up. And they ask, are these the same movie or are these different movies? And they're 8 different movies. They're the same, which is why like I would give him like a hard time on the show. But if now that I've seen this trailer, and now that I've seen his look, and now that I've seen his like, if this is his actual chops, if this is who he is, and this is like what he's actually capable of, and he just made his bag and then said, you know what, okay, like I'm a serious actor, actually, let me show you. My perspective on him and will change, and my respect will instantly hit the roof, because that would be insane. And we will have to consider him as one of the best talents to ever step foot on our screen if he is a $1 billion actor year in and year out, and then is an Oscar winner. That's just the kind of, and that might be my sports talk like hitting with like accolades and the best of all time, but like that, you have to have him in that conversation.
Dave Bautista have some competition for once now, because you know I've always thought he was the best wrestler turn actor, which now I mean John Cena's turned into a pretty decent one too now as well.
I'd like to see. I think Dave Bautista will have a good run, but we'll have to see. But anyway, going down the list, we have our first official full-length trailer for Zach Kreger's Weapons, which I've seen everywhere, and I haven't verified this, so I can't fact check it. Apparently, Jordan Peele fired his producing team and stuff because they didn't buy this film. They got outbid.
I saw that. I saw that as well. So it might be true.
The marketing for this is insane, and dude, it looks so good. Julia Gardner plays a elementary school teacher whose students, her entire classroom at 2:17 a.m. gets up and runs away.
That's the part. I don't know much about it outside. I've just seen him like running towards something. So.
Josh Brolin, I think, is a parent or a detective. He's not. If I remember correctly, in one of the teasers or the trailer, he says he doesn't have one of his kids didn't disappear, but he's trying to figure out what's going on. They're both on full display in the trailer. It looks insane. It looks so scary, and I'm so excited. That's like the type of horror film that I really like. Moving down the line,
have to give that one a try too.
Well, it's going to be so good. But it might scare you. Like, you might not be one to actually enjoy it.
That's okay though.
Moving down the line, we got our first trailer for Now You See Me, Now You Don't, the 3rd installment into the 4 Horsemen story, which sees a return to all of our lead actors, including Jesse Eisenberg and Woody Harrelson and all of our people.
All I know about that is that if you watch the live thing they did for it, you got paid $119 via Venmo. And I'm very sad that I did not go to that when it happened.
Yeah, I'm so excited. I love the Now You See Me films, and I'm so excited.
I know
they're so smart. They're so smart.
I for sure have seen the first one. I can't remember if I've seen the second one.
On this next,
yeah, I like them.
On this last trailer, this is one, Matt, you will despise. We saw the first official trailer, or at least another trailer. I know we've had a teaser for Michael Shanks Together, starring Allison Brie and Dave Franco. Do you know anything about this film?
I do not.
It is a body horror which means you see the human body get morphed or chopped up or changed in some way that's uncomfortable. And from what I can grasp, because I'm trying to go in, this is one of those films that I'm trying to, and I think I've read the synopsis a couple weeks ago, but I don't really remember it off the top of my head. But I'm trying to go in with as little information as possible. You have this couple who goes on vacation, or like they're trying to separate themselves from society to better grow as a unit. And when they get out there, a curse or something happens, and their bodies start to like become an amalgamation of one. And on the trailer, and on the I guess it's more like the thumbnail, you see their eyelashes start to get intertwined as they like
I'm
get
looking at it
pulled
right
together.
now. Yeah.
And ooh, it makes me like want to go, like it makes me want to cringe up. But I bet it's so good. There's a scene in the trailer where you see Allison Brie is like, and you don't see it on camera, so I'm assuming they're like stuck together, like their bodies are becoming one. But she picks up like a drill, and she makes Dave Franco drink, like she's sitting essentially on his lap facing him, but she looks stuck, and she makes him drink a ton of alcohol, and she takes the drill and she just starts digging into something, and they both start to scream. And it looks so good. And like they both start freaking out, and I'm like, it looks so unique. And they're already calling it, I think that right now it's got 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, which
100% on 46 reviews.
that is insane. So yeah, that's on like a
that's
Sinners
level right
yeah.
there. Yeah.
So who knows if it'll stick that way, but that one's coming out soon, and we saw the trailer for that. Of these trailers, we'll finally get to the question: which one are you most excited for?
By far, the Smashing Machine. It's something about A24 and a just tragic fighting backstory. You know, you had what was the wrestling one they did with Zach Efron?
Iron Claw, was it?
Iron Claw.
Yep.
Yeah, that one was brutal. That's a brutal one. Which I mean,
Based off
that
a true
movie by
story.
itself. And they had to leave some stuff out of that because of how brutal that story is.
It's the Von Erichs. Yeah.
Yeah. And this one, I'm very excited to see not just The Rock, but also Emily Blunt. Looks like she's going to deliver a Oscar, at least Oscar nomination type performance. I mean, she looks just as good as he does in that movie. So it definitely looks like it's going to tug on your heartstrings. I'm interested in also seeing or looking more into before weapons. So that for sure. But yeah, the Smashing Machine for me. What about you?
So in terms of intrigue, I think I am like you talk about the Smashing Machine. I'm very interested in that because I think that's one we'll be talking about later in the year, going into next year when the Oscar season starts ramping up. We'll be talking about that one, like you mentioned, a lot. So I obviously getting to that as early as possible and trying to dissect that so you have it cataloged for when other films come out during the Oscar season. You can compare and contrast it. But for me, it's got to be Weapons. Like that film, it's just I Barbarian was great. It was weird, but it was good. And the fact of the matter is, Weapons has been a film that's been on the rise and in discussion for 2 years. And then when they pop out this expert masterclass in marketing, and you see just from their trailer, you see how Julia Gardner and Josh Brolin are, they're giving like an Oscar-worthy performance, even if this isn't an Oscar like nominated film. I am so excited for this sequel. I love like. We talked last week. If you get spooky marketing, like I was in theaters for Longlegs on opening weekend because their marketing was so good, even though it was kind of a disappointing film. Was it good? Sure. But it's like Cuckoo did the same thing for me last year. That's one no one ever talks about. No one will ever talk about again is another, that was a Focus feature or a Neon. I think it was Neon. The marketing for that was really good, and it turned out to be a disappointment. So this definitely feels like it's fitting in that realm of like, oh, these are great marketing. Like I want it to be good. But the difference is that Jordan Peele fought for this one. Barbarian was fantastic. And it's just so why 217? Like I have so many questions, and just that trailer, there are kids jumping out of windows with their mouths open, sprinting towards Julia Gardner.
If Jordan Peele fired somebody because they weren't able to get this, I think that should tell you everything you need to know about the movie right there.
I'm so excited.
Jordan Peele he knows a good story when he sees one.
Yeah, I am beyond thrilled. And so I would say I'm probably the most excited for Weapons, but Together is very intriguing. And I mean, how can you not say you're not excited for Now You See Me, Now You Don't? Like it's just all four of these films are fantastic. But like I think of them, I think I'm the most excited for Weapons, and then obviously the Smashing Machine has my intrigue at the highest. But then I'll be watching all of them. But that would probably be what I would do. we're going to go ahead and move on because we got 2 more pieces of news to talk about, not a lot of time. Jurassic World Rebirth. There's a lot of discussion surrounding the big bad in this one. So let's go ahead and go over the entire thing. So while we might have already seen the first trailer for the upcoming installment into the Jurassic World franchise, director Gareth Edwards gave more insight into one of the most unique additions to the dinosaur lore, and I say that with air quotes, within the universe of the film. What we know now for sure is the narrative will follow Scarlett Johansson's Zora Bennett, Jonathan Bailey's Henry Loomis, and Marshala Ali's Duncan Kincaid as they are sent to collect DNA samples for whatever reason. They are sent to collect. This is always happening. I feel like the funniest parts of the Jurassic film franchise is that there's never a good reason. It's always just let's do it, and then they get into all sorts of trouble. Anyway, it is during this trailer, which lays out this story, that we see a new kind of creature. Looking into a bright red and cloudy glow, a mist, just kind of a haze, we see what looks like a T-Rex, but with a bulbous round head, narrow jaw, and extremely wide body. In an interview with Empire, Edwards described what went into the design of what is now being dubbed the Distortus Rex or D-Rex. Quote, it's kind of like the T-Rex when designed by H.R. Geiger, and then that whole thing had sex with a Rancor. If you know anything about what a Rancor looks like from Star Wars lore, they're terrifying and they're massive. And that's what this dude is saying is at least one of the parents of this thing. So the creature has 4 arms, a dome-shaped head with abilities such as hyper jaw extension and camouflage.
Wow.
The story takes place on a 3rd island unknown to any story yet in the lore of the franchise, a place where, according to Empire, quote, where InGen's most egregious genetic meddling went down. Do you have any thoughts?
This one, I'm just based on the trailers I've seen for it. Like I want to see it because I love Jurassic Park, but I'm like, I don't know. You know, the dinosaur looks creepy. I mean, I was gonna say it looks like if like the Predator was a dinosaur almost, just from the 2 images I've seen of it. But yeah, that thing looks terrifying. But you know, I think Scarlett Johansson, she'll do a good job. Mahershala Ali, that's, you know, they have some star-studded people in it. That'll probably fall under. I'll probably still see it, but it'll probably be like, let's see what everybody says about it before I go and see it. Kind of movies.
It looks epic. The thing is I've not really, like, outside of the first 2, I've not really kept up with the Jurassic Park World Dominion franchise.
I mean, the last one was terrible. You know, they threw all those people from the original and had Chris Pratt and Bryce Dallas Howard in it, and then it just didn't. I never even saw it, but it did that bad.
Yeah. See, that's the thing is like a lot of people felt like it was dead after that. And now we have this next installment, Rebirth. And man, it looks interesting. So I want to go back and I want to watch up to this point. I want to, because I'm not as familiar outside of the first 2 with the InGen lore, and I want to learn more about the other islands and stuff before
When
I
you
see
say
this
the
one, but-
first 2, do you mean the original and the sequel to that one?
Yes.
So you never
Sorry.
saw the Chris Pratt ones,
No,
right?
no. I never kept up with it. When I say first 2, I mean Jurassic Park and Jurassic Park 2. Which the 90s.
See, I never saw the third. I never saw the third one of that because again, that
I
one
might have seen the
I heard
third
that
one.
one. I think that one had either the second or third one had Vince Vaughn in it, I believe.
I don't remember that. Maybe I haven't seen
Yeah,
it.
I could be wrong, but the 2 with Chris Pratt, the first one was great. The first one has a sequence in the movie that you're just like, okay, well that just happened. So but the first one of that one was really good. The second one was okay. You know, I just always feel like Jurassic Park, like the first one always can be good, but once we start getting into a sequel, you know, a trilogy, it's really hard to make something like that interesting for 3 movies.
Yeah.
Essentially becomes the same thing.
And on that note, I think it's a good point to get to our final news topic as we're an hour and 20 in. We're rapidly approaching our 90-minute mark. Adam Pearson, who comes from A Different Man, stars in A Different Man of opposite of Sebastian Stan this past year, is set to play Joseph Merrick in the next Elephant Man adaptation. While the film shares the same name and same title character as David Lynch's film of the same name, this is not a remake of the 1980 film. Instead, the film is an adaptation of Bernard Pomerantz's Tony Award-winning stage play, The Elephant Man. So there's a distinction. All three will share the same name. However, not only the same name, the same title characters and everything, but they're not the same story. So, moving on from that, this is the first film adaptation of the original stage play, with the script having been written by Pomerantz's son, Moby, which is such a sweet thing. I think that's so nice. The original play follows a story of, quote, in 1880s London, John Merrick is a horribly deformed young man, a victim of rare skin and bone diseases. Under the care of celebrated physician Frederick Treves, Merrick slowly evolves from an object of pity to an urbane gentleman, desperate to be recognized as a man like any other. And that's from Concord Theatricals, is where that description comes from. The story is also told through Dr. Treves' diary entries. So we get this interesting story from the doctor's perspective as he's treating this man with this inoperable disfigurement. And I don't know if you know anything about Adam Pearson, but he has like a face disfigurement, and that was like a big part of his original.
I clicked on the link here. I've seen his face before. I never saw the A Different Man movie, but I'd seen Sebastian Stan talk about it and
it's beautiful.
Everything. Yeah.
He's a beautiful talent, and it's really amazing
Yeah.
to see him, like his talent and his personality. Like, because the thing is that even in today's time, when you have I don't even want to call it a disfigurement because it's his face. You know, like it's wrong in my mind. It's wrong to call it that. Like that's who, like it's him.
That's just who he is.
Yeah. But like people will see his face and they will turn away. And the fact that he has that his star power and his personality and just who he is and his just raw talent shine through, and he's here, just like it warms my heart to no extent. So I hate to the opposite end of this. I hate that his next film after A Different Man is Elephant Man, because I feel like that's he's immediately typecast. Like now that he's played one character who's trying to like overcome his real life. Now he will only play that, and it's tough because it's like I can already see creators be like, well, how else do you cast him? And so it's like I would love to see him just be an actor, like, you know, like not based upon things that he can't control. But it is very, like, I'm excited for this because A Different Man is just a beautiful film, and I'm excited to see exactly what happens with The Elephant Man, especially as like an original like take from the original story and not just a David Lynch remake. So yeah, what do you think?
Well, I don't know a lot about Elephant Man, but it sounds like it could be something that, you know, has some potential to be really good. And I do want to check out A Different Man because I've never seen. You said Joseph Merrick is his name?
Well, Joseph Merrick is the character that Adam Pearson will be playing.
Adam Pearson is the guy. So I haven't seen anything he's done, but I've seen you're not the first person to say that he's a phenomenal talent. So I trust that he will do a great job in this, and it's definitely something I'm going to keep an eye on.
And on that note, that is the end of our long, expansive, almost 6-page list of news items, and I'm done reading for the night. So as always, I open the floor. Matt, anything you want to leave our beautiful people with?
Thank you for having me here. It's been fun to chat about the movies and the things we love to talk about. Just happy to be here and look forward to the next time.
How sweet. How sweet. That's so much more humble than Jake. Jake will usually just spout off like, don't go to random islands with dinosaurs. And then it's like, okay, thanks, Grant. Thanks.
Don't invite in random Irish people to your bar.
Yeah. Especially if they're speaking in sync with two other people behind them with the banjo and it's weird. Yeah,
yes,
don't do that.
Yes.
I'll leave you with again another thank you. It just I'll see you next week. Thank you for sticking around, and we'll do this again next Monday. So see you guys.
All right.